Hi everyone, thanks for tuning in to learn about Roma rights in Hungary. In this presentation, I'll be discussing the Roma people, how they arrived in Hungary, and how their fate has varied over the centuries of different political systems in the country. The Roma people, who are pejoratively referred to as Gypsies, are the largest minority group in Eastern Europe. There are 8 million Roma living in Europe, and it is estimated that 70% live in Central and Eastern Europe. The Roma are the largest ethnic minority in Hungary, making up about 3 to 5% of the population. Roma are often segregated in society and discriminated against, and as a result, they live in poverty, receive poor education, lack health care, and experience extremely high unemployment rates. The Roma people can trace their origins back to northwestern India. In 2012, it was discovered that the genes of Roma are comparable to Indians in the northern part of the country. Linguists who studied the Roma language found the grammatical rules to be almost identical to the Hindi language. The Roma were driven out of India in the 10th and 11th centuries. They traveled through Persia and Armenia and settled in the Byzantine Empire. But when the Ottoman Turks came to power, the Roma moved further west. It is estimated that the Ottoman Turks drove the Roma out of the Balkans in the 14th and 15th centuries, which is when the Roma first moved into the Hungarian lands. These early Roma immigrants assimilated into Hungarian society. They learned the Hungarian language and became skilled workers. There was a second wave of Roma migration into Hungary in the early 20th century. These Roma mainly came from Romania, but unlike the first wave of migrants into Hungary, the new Roma did not quickly assimilate into Hungarian society. They maintained their own languages and cultural practices, which created conflicts between the ethnic Hungarians and the newly arrived Roma immigrants. During World War II, the Nazis occupied Hungary, and in 1944 they began to implement their final solution in the Hungarian land. The Nazi SS and the Hungarian Arrow-Cross Party targeted Roma people in addition to the Jewish people. The Roma Holocaust in Europe is known as the Porjamos, which in English means the devouring. Nazis sterilized, experimented on, and executed Roma. It is estimated that 28,000 Roma from Hungary died during the Second World War. In total, the Nazis killed 220,000 to 500,000 Roma across Europe. After World War II, Hungary entered a period of communist rule that was modeled after the government in the Soviet Union. During this time, the socialist government wanted to turn all citizens into laborers, Roma included. Thus, the Roma people were integrated into the workforce. Roma had jobs in mining, heavy industry, and the agricultural sector. Even though they were given economic opportunities, simultaneously the government tried to eliminate their cultural heritage and social life by attempting to assimilate them into mainstream Hungarian society. Roma did not have the right to establish Roma language schools, newspapers in their own language, or radio broadcasts. After the end of the communist regime in 1989, state-owned industry was privatized and the Roma were the first people to be laid off. As such, Roma unemployment rates skyrocketed and discrimination and prejudice against Roma has become increasingly widespread and publicly acceptable. Their living standards fell far below the majority population. 70 to 80% of Roma in Hungary live below the poverty line. 85% of the Roma are unemployed in Hungary, and the life expectancy for Roma in Hungary is 10 years less than that of non-Roma people. Roma people in Hungary face segregation in society. 45 to 55% of Roma in Hungary have housing that is on the fringes of towns in rural areas that is separated from the rest of society. Often these homes are missing at least one of the following: electricity, an indoor kitchen, or an indoor shower. Due to the locations of these Roma settlements, children often live far from good schools and cannot afford the cost of public transport to travel to school. Roma children who do attend school are often segregated in the Hungarian educational system. Even though segregation is officially illegal in Hungary, Roma children are often placed in schools for children with intellectual disabilities. 20% of Roma children are placed in these schools as compared to only 2% of the Hungarian population. These schools are inferior to mainstream schools and often lack the resources needed for a sophisticated education. In some cases, the Roma children who are put into normal schools are placed into segregated classes. 20 to 25% of Roma students who do attend school drop out by the 9th grade. The lack of educational opportunities among Roma perpetuates the cycle of poverty. It is estimated that 85% of working-age Roma are unemployed. One reason for this is due to high rates of discrimination faced by Roma searching for work. In many cases, Roma have reported that they are told over the phone that a vacancy exists, only to show up at the workplace and be immediately rejected by the employer. Roma society itself remains isolated from the majority population. There are few recognizable Roma leaders to communicate with the Hungarian government. Out of the 386 seats in the Hungarian parliament, only 4 are held by Roma individuals. In many cases, Roma do not have an effective voice in society to advocate for themselves and their rights. On the other hand, the Hungarian society is quite outspoken in their attacks and discrimination of the Roma people. The far right-wing political party Jobbik, which is the third largest in Hungary's National Assembly, is vehemently anti-Roma. One of their party's platforms is to solve the Gypsy problem in Hungary. Their leader, Gabor Vona, claimed that it was a social problem that the Roma population is increasing while the ethnic Hungarian population is decreasing. They released a campaign video in 2010 that equated Roma to parasites that are draining the Hungarian resources. There have been a number of paramilitary organizations founded that promote neo-Nazi ideals and claim to protect the Hungarian people from the Gypsy criminals. These include, but are not limited to, the Hungarian Guard, the New Hungarian Guard, the Outlaws Army, and the Association for a Better Future Civil Guard. These groups espouse hatred towards minorities and create a threatening atmosphere in Roma communities. The rhetoric and actions of Hungarian politicians and these paramilitary organizations have created a culture of accepted intolerance towards Roma in Hungary. Roma are subject to threats, physical attacks, and even killings. Between 2008 and 2012, there were 61 incidents of violence against Roma in Hungary. The vast majority of Hungarians do not participate in such paramilitary organizations or violence towards Roma, but the majority do see Roma as a distinct ethnic group that should not be afforded the same rights as the ethnic Hungarian population. 60% of Hungarians claim to believe that criminality was in the blood of Gypsies, and 42% believe that it would be appropriate to forbid Roma from entering clubs or bars. Hungary is not alone in their discrimination, segregation, mistreatment, and threats of violence towards Roma. Roma are segregated and discriminated against all across Europe. Shattering stereotypes and raising awareness on the rights of minorities is one way we can strive to improve the life of Roma people in Hungary and the rest of Europe. Thank you for tuning in to learn something about the Roma people in Hungary.